Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Sky Observers Hangout. We hope you are having a great night. My name is Michelle, and I'm the Director of Public Observing at the Adler Planetarium in Chicago, and I have a friend joining me tonight.
It's me. So my name is Adriana, and I am the astronomy educator at the Adler. We've got some other friends joining us behind the scenes tonight as well. So our YouTube chat moderator tonight is Sarah. Hello, Sarah. And answering questions in the chat is our astronomer friend, Geza. Hi, Geza. So if you see the Adler's name highlighted in yellow, that's Sarah. And when you see a name with a little blue wrench next to it in the chat, that is Geza, who is here answering your questions and comments tonight. So ask them if you've got them.
Yep, please do. Now, Sky Observers Hangout is a place for us to gather together to nerd out about the sky. Our goal is to give you practical tips and tricks that you can find useful about lots of things related to sky observing. If you want to just watch us, that is totally fine. We would also love to interact with you and see your questions and observations in the chat. Feel free to interact with us and with each other.
Yes, we love to hear from you guys. So to get this show started, tell us in the chat where you guys are tuning in from. And as an added bonus, tell us what your favorite thing about spring or the spring sky is.
Now, while you're doing that, while the Adler's doors must remain closed, we're doing our best to keep our virtual doors open by creating and sharing some out of this world content for you. If you wouldn't mind, please use the link that Sarah's going to put in the chat in just a sec to donate what you feel comfortable to contribute to our programming. Thank you so much for allowing us to keep sharing our universe with you.
Yes, excellent. And you can help us get more visibility for our shows by hitting subscribe for the Adler Planetarium's YouTube channel. That's right below this video. If you like us, you can go ahead and give us a thumbs up too. So let's see where you guys are tuning in from tonight, and if you have shared any favorite things about spring. So we've got, oh, hi, Karen. Karen says, hi, and happy spring from Kenosha. Hello. Happy spring. I'm very excited about spring too. We've got a friend from Chicago Little Village. Hi. Sophia from Illinois. Excellent. Well, thank you all. From Huntley from Ukrainian Village. My favorite part is not freezing with my telescope like over the winter. Wow. Yes. Can empathize.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's a big, exciting thing. Awesome. Thank you all for joining us. I am glad you guys are all here with us. So what about you, Michelle? What's your favorite thing about spring?
Well, my favorite thing that is usually visible in the first part of spring is the daffodils coming up in our front yard. So they're almost about to bloom. So got a bunch of them. So that's pretty cool. And I like going out for a walk and not having to bundle up in 15 layers of clothing in order to do that. So how about you?
That. I have mostly been excited to go on more walks without slipping on ice or snow. I am from Florida. Oh, like Kimberly, I am from Florida. I am not good at walking on ice. I slip all the time. So excited that that part of the year is over at least. But also the warmer weather makes it so much easier to get out with a telescope or with binoculars and take a look at the sky, right?
Hey, can we say hi to one more person? Renata Pluta from Australia. I think you might win as the farthest distant person who is currently watching Sky Observers Hangout. Hello. Oh, we have some Florida friends. That's so awesome.
I used to live in South Florida. Very exciting.
The
weather's always good for observing. Well, except for when it's raining, but you know.
Yeah, well, there is that. But. All right. Anything else before we go on?
I think we are all good.
All right.
Renata's going to have a different sky. That's kind of exciting.
Oh, right.
I hadn't thought about that. You've got a southern sky. That's very neat. But let's get to it. So we're going to start this time around with a constellation that many of you might be familiar with that isn't limited to just the springtime. So we are mostly covering the northern sky. Tonight we are talking about Ursa Major, the Big Bear, which contains the Big Dipper, which a lot of you might be familiar with. This is a great place to start because it can help you find other prominent spring constellations. So we can show you how.
All right, and it is my turn to share my screen, so I want to get that going. All right, now, Adriana mentioned wanting to find the Big Dipper. And if you don't
Yes.
know how to find it, don't worry, we've got you covered. You'll want to look to the north in the northern skies. Of course, the Big Dipper might not be visible to our friend in Australia, but this time of year, right now, the Big Dipper will appear just a bit east of north. It looks sort of like a big spoon with a handle on it or a ladle, and the stars are bright and easy to find. And I'm using my cursor right here to circle it. And then you can use the 3 stars in the handle right here, and you can use them to point to something else in the sky that's rather bright. So you want to use the curve of the handle, and you will use the arc of that curve to point to this star right here, which is called Arcturus, and it is the brightest star in the constellation of Boötes.
Yes. Boötes is supposed to be a herdsman, but during constellation shows at the Adler, people used to say that he looks like a milkshake, kind of like in a fancy milkshake glass. I don't know if you guys see it, but I agree with them. I can't unsee it now that I've seen it.
And I don't think I will ever unsee that either, because this is the first time when we were going over the script about a week ago. I read that and I go, oh, of course it looks like a fancy milkshake glass. I used to think it looked like an ice cream cone, kind
That
of,
too.
maybe. So now to the left of Boötes, in this case, we're facing north, so it's going to be a little bit below Boötes. We've got a kind of half circle. This is a crown called Corona Borealis, the northern crown. And so to the left of that or below that, you can see this guy right here, just coming up in the east. That is Hercules.
Yes.
Sorry.
I love Hercules, in part because the movie's very fun, but also I think it looks kind of like he's dancing. I don't know if you guys see, so the square is his body, and then he's got kind of like 2 arms up in the air, having a great time. That's what I see anyway. But Hercules is a summer warrior. He rises in the opposite part of the sky as Orion, the winter warrior, sets. Kind of like the two don't get along. That's how I remember it.
That's a good way to do it. All right, so I'm going to turn our sky. By the way, those of you who have watched Sky Observers Hangout before, you know we like using Stellarium, a free website where you can go and dial up the sky for your time of year, wherever you are, your location. So I've got this set for 10 o'clock tonight. So, but all this information is good for the next several weeks throughout the spring. So if you can't get out tonight, if it's not clear, don't worry, we got you. This is good. All right, so let's get back to our Big Dipper, your arc to Arcturus, and if you keep on going, you're gonna speed on to Spica. This is Spica, the brightest star in the constellation of Virgo the Maiden, one of our zodiac constellations. You might be able to imagine her kind of with her hands up like that, or maybe she's lying down after a long day in the sky. I don't know.
My vote is that she's riding a roller coaster.
Oh,
Just want that on the record.
oh, that works. All right. So now if we move back to the Big Dipper, we can use it to find another constellation.
Yes. So this is one of my favorites. If you imagine that the Big Dipper has a small hole in that kind of cup part at the bottom, and you can imagine that water falling out of that hole maybe would drip down, it would fall down onto the back of the constellation Leo the Lion, which is my zodiac constellation. Part of the reason that it's exciting, but it's also exciting because I think it actually looks like a lion. So the backwards question mark shape of his head is where it really looks kind of like a lion's mane. The bright star at the bottom of that question mark is called Regulus. So that's called the heart of the lion. Excellent. I like Karen's comment. Hercules and Virgo sharing a milkshake. It's perfect.
Love it.
I love it. All right. And then if you take the 3 bright stars that we talked about, Regulus, that heart of the lion, Spica, and Arcturus, you'll see that they form a triangle shape that you can call the spring triangle, sort of like an analog to the more popular summer triangle.
Yep. There is a winter triangle. You know, we have not ever actually looked to see if there's a fall triangle. I wonder. I don't know. We can make one up at some point.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else before we go on and move on? Anything else you want me to show? Any questions
Sophia
our friends
has
have?
mentioned the moon, and I do want to say that the moon is out tonight, and you should go look at it if you are doing some stargazing tonight. It is sort of clear in Chicago, so if you're around these parts, you might be in for a good view of that too.
Yep. So just remember everything we've shown you, just head to that Big Dipper and you can see all this stuff, provided it's clear out. So, all right, anything else before we go on?
No?
All right, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Okay. All right, now great. There are some really nice bright stars and constellations to look for in the springtime, and you don't need any special tools to see these bright stars and constellations. You can find it all with just your eyes. That said, spring is a great time to look for some dimmer objects if you have binoculars or a telescope, and we can share where to look and what to look for using some images we took. And we're going to start with Leo the Lion. Now remember, you can find him. Just go to that Big Dipper, poke a hole in the dipper and the water falls onto the back of Leo. He is really easy to find using that method. So let me go and share a cool picture.
Yes, we love cool pictures.
There it is.
Yay! Leo the Lion. So, a question for you, Michelle. How did you get this picture?
So I live in the western suburbs of Chicago, and so definitely some light pollution problem here. Not quite as bad as in the city, but still kind of bad. And so one night, just a few weeks ago, I think you can still see my video, I took my DSLR camera, stuck it on a tripod, and set it so that the shutter was open for maybe about 5 or 6 seconds. For some of these, maybe it was more like 8 seconds, and let the shutter open, took the picture. And so that's a setting, a manual setting that I can set on this DSLR camera. So that is one thing that you can do. You can check to see if you have one of these cameras. You can check to see if you have one of these cameras, you can check to see if those are settings that your camera allows. But it's a great way to take pictures at night and to try to get constellation pictures like this.
Yes, excellent. So once you've found Leo, if you look in the direction that Leo the Lion is facing, so you kind of imagine him facing to the right and a little bit up in this picture, you will see the constellation Cancer. And in the constellation Cancer, you might be able to find, if you've got binoculars or a telescope and you're in a dark space, you might be able to find a star cluster called the Beehive cluster. So Michelle also was able to catch it in this picture here. Very cool.
Thankfully, Adriana has added a circle to the
I did, just in case.
So, and no, I could not see this with just my eyes from my front driveway. Definitely had to get this using the camera, and then Adriana brought out the brightness in the picture. By the way, you can really tell at the bottom of that picture, light pollution. You can see it, that direction that I face. When I was taking this picture, it's like toward car dealerships and a mall and all that. So lots of bright light in the sky. So, but the Beehive is a great target for binoculars. And you can capture it with a camera if you leave the shutter open for about 6-8 seconds or so. And you can see the cluster right here in the circle.
Very cool. All right. Spring is also a good time to look for M51, the Whirlpool Galaxy. So to find this, we can go back to our Big Dipper. I also put the outline of the Little Dipper here too, just for fun. So you can go back to the Big Dipper and look a bit above the last star of the handle. Well, in this image, it's going to be a little bit to the right. So you can't see it in this image, but that's about where you would look. We've shown an image of the Whirlpool Galaxy taken by the Dome Telescope before, but we will take this opportunity to share it again because it is cool.
Got it.
Love this image.
That's cool. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was taken by an observatory telescope. This target will be more difficult to find with a smaller telescope or binoculars unless you're in incredibly dark skies. I did do my research and I asked one of our colleagues, Ken, who sometimes goes out to very dark sky areas, if he has been able to see it there with binoculars or a telescope. And he said both, which is very cool. It makes a huge difference just to be in a really dark sky. Unfortunately, from Chicago, you're not going to get that kind of view with binoculars. At the very least, you're going to need a very good telescope to do it.
All right. Any questions that we should check out before we move on to more stuff?
Nope, I think we're all good.
All right. So I want to take us back to the Big Dipper one more time. So there we go. And Adriana has added a very lovely arrow. That arrow is not really in the sky. But there is one more neat thing to pay attention to. From Chicago, the Big Dipper is visible in all seasons. That's because it never sets below the horizon. We call that a circumpolar constellation. This is what we call the constellations that closely circle around Polaris, the North Star, over the course of the year. And that means that the position of the Big Dipper in the early evening sky changes every season.
Yes, exactly. So we can show you what we mean. Those of us who gave star shows at the planetarium had a sort of silly way of remembering it. So in the fall, if Michelle could do this, there we go.
Yep.
In the fall, the Big Dipper sits kind of like a spoon closer to the ground. You can imagine that leaves falling from the trees might fall into the cup, hence it is fall. So as the seasons change to winter, we'll show our next Big Dipper here. The handle looks kind of like an icicle hanging from the cup. That's how we remember that it is winter. And then in the spring, you can imagine that if water were to fill the cup, it would fall down, it would pour out kind of like a rainstorm. And lastly, in the summer, we'll do our last little rotation here. This is my favorite one. In the summer, you can imagine it as a juice box with a straw poking out, or whatever your drink of choice is in the summer. I'm not here to judge.
Nope. There you go. I love it. All right. That's pretty cool.
We do have one question here before we switch away from the slides, Michelle.
Yeah.
Tom asks, can we point out whereabouts the Whirlpool Galaxy is in relation to the Big Dipper? Yes. Can we go back to the...
Yes, I certainly can. So let me go back to the picture. I'm going to do that one or...
Yes.
Yeah.
That's fine.
All right.
So from that star at the very bottom, it is a little bit to, like a tiny bit up and a tiny bit more to the right. Keep going just a little, yeah.
So right about there? -ish?
Yeah. In that region, it's difficult to do it with a mouse like this. But yes, if you are really interested in finding it, if you just literally Google like star hopping to M51 from the Big Dipper, you'll get a much more exact version. There is a star that's kind of close by that you can star hop to first, and then you can look for the galaxy that will help you out.
I'm going to do one quick thing, and I want to see, I'm sure I didn't actually spot it with the camera, but I'm just going to do one quick check. Give me just a second. This is not what we planned to do.
Totally okay. What are you looking for?
I'm looking for there. Okay, so, oh, all right. So it is in this picture. It's right behind a tree. So
that's farther than I thought.
It's right in. It's like right in.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
So like pretty much at the end of that branch. So.
Yeah. There is a star that can get you a little bit closer. That will be easier to kind of jump to if you're trying to go in the right direction.
Yeah, actually, I think the end of that branch is probably pointing just about directly at it. But yeah, probably too much light pollution to be able to see it from western suburbs of Chicago.
Right.
So, all right.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. Anything else before we move on?
Let's see. What is the closest dark sky location to Chicago that might be a good option for local amateur photographers? Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we've mentioned it before. There's a couple places that you can go. It depends on which one you go to, kind of depends on where exactly in the Chicago area you are, because one will be a little easier to get to than the other, depending on where you are. If you're in the western-ish suburbs, then you can go west to the Green River State Wildlife Area. And that is maybe about an hour and a half away from the western suburbs. And so we know that the local amateur astronomy clubs in the before times like to go out there to do some nighttime stargazing. If you go, or if you want to go out there, give them a call ahead of time. Make sure that they're letting people stay at night. It's a good idea to call ahead, because even though information could be up to date on websites, things change so much right now that they may not even be able to put information soon enough up on the website. So it's always great to give the ranger station a call and see if they don't mind if you go out there. Another place is the Middle Fork River Forest Preserve down a little bit northeast of Champaign. And that is Illinois' first and currently only dark sky park. So that's a great place to go. If you're in the northern suburbs, then you might want to think about going up to the Bong Recreation Area in Wisconsin. That's, I've heard of a fair bit number of folks like to go up there. But again, check ahead of time, make sure it's cool. And then if you're an Illinois resident, you might have to pay entrance fee to get into the Wisconsin parks. I don't know if that's one of them, but just check on the website and see what the requirements might be for entry to especially a park that's in another state from where you are currently located. So there you go.
Yeah. Great.
All right. Any others?
I think we are all good on questions for now.
All right. So I'm just moving forward so that I'm ready for sharing the next set of images. There we go. All right. So we love sharing both the sky and neat, cool stuff from the Adler's collections with you in these shows. If you've watched us, you know we show you something cool in the sky, we give you something cool to do, and a lot of times we're going to connect that with something historical. And tonight, we're showing you something special that probably a lot of you have never seen. This is a really old piece of history, and it's an object that dates back to, believe it or not, Mesopotamia. So I'm going to share the picture of this object. There it is. There we go. So this carved rock of a lion, part of the Adler's collection, dates back to somewhere in the neighborhood of 2500 to 1800 BCE. Now, what does this have to do with astronomy and the spring sky? If you look closely at the shoulder of the lion, so right here, you'll see a round marking with an X in the middle where the star Regulus appears on the shoulder of the constellation Leo the Lion. So, is this a representation of just a lion? This marking could very well be just a rosette, an ornament used to decorate royal court lions. Or is it the star Regulus on a representation of the constellation Leo the Lion? Now, we used to put up a small temporary exhibit at the Adler each year, and I know at least one person on this show who's in the chat will remember this, where we posed this very question: is this is this lion Leo? So this particular version of the exhibit is the 1994 version. And so is this lion Leo, or is this just a regular old lion? What do you all think out there in the chat? Let us know. We would love to know what you think.
Yes. So when I first came across this piece in our collection, I thought it was kind of funny to speculate about whether or not it was made to be representing the constellation Leo the Lion. But it raises some interesting questions about how we make meaning and history out of objects from so long ago. So I checked in with our curator, Pedro, to ask a few questions about how realistic it is to consider this a constellation representation, and how we got it into our astronomy collection in the first place, which both me and Michelle were super curious about.
Yeah, I had seen this thing up, and I didn't know really anything about it other than could this have been Leo the Lion? So go ahead.
Yeah. So we added this piece to our collection way back in 1933, just knowing that it could have been a representation of Leo. There are other depictions of lions, bulls, and scorpions in the Mesopotamian art from the same period, some of which also contain elements that could maybe be astronomical or astrological. We know that by then, lions and bulls in particular played a very important role in Mesopotamian art and culture. And if you remember from our Zodiac constellation episode, bulls and scorpions also have their place in the zodiac constellations as Scorpio the Scorpion, one of the zodiac constellations, and also Taurus the Bull. But how can we figure out if it was meant to represent the constellation? Well, it's still a mystery, but here's the information we've got. The oldest surviving cuneiform, am I saying that right, Michelle?
You are. Good job.
Thank you. Cuneiform writings mentioning Leo and other constellations of the zodiac used to this day mostly date back to the first millennium BC. At best, the content of these writings can be dated back to the 14th century BC, but it's kind of complicated because there were several of these writings that were likely copied over and over again, and only some of them survived. So it's very difficult to tell exactly when this came into existence. So assuming that our piece is genuine and the date interval is correct, there's no other available evidence that can support it being a representation of the constellation Leo. But what I really appreciated about talking to our curator, Pedro, was how he framed the rest of the story. So we can approach this piece instead as an example of how the lion played a really important role in Mesopotamian art and culture, which is also reflected by the presence of Leo in the zodiac, whether or not we know which one came first necessarily. So it all goes down to approaching our collections from a broader cultural perspective. Because astronomy and astrology did not emerge in isolation from everything else. They were part of the culture, and that is how all of that stuff came to be known that way in the sky.
If you think about it, it could be all of it. It could be lions are important. Lions in the sky. Lions are royal court objects. Lions are decoration. All of it together. And that's the fascinating part. We, in our modern eyes, tend to separate all of it. Oh, it's only the constellation, or it's only a representation or drawing of a lion. But it could have been very, I guess you could use the word interchangeable, maybe. And so they might not have separated all that out. And so this was so fascinating to hear all of this and read it all, because this is an aspect of the story that I had never thought about. And so it just makes you think more that people made this, people used this in some way, and it's not just a stone lion. This is something that was important to someone. Not only that, it was important to someone to keep. It was important to someone to save it, and not use it for something else. So anyway.
Yeah. All right. So, Ona's Terra says it's the glyph for the Earth. I haven't heard about that, but I am curious to learn more about it. So maybe I will do some research. Thank you. And Jennifer says, I could see it being that, though the skies were so influential on their art and stories. Absolutely. It's a real possibility. And that is definitely part of why it's in our collection in the first place. So I kind of hope that it is. I feel like there's a real possibility. So
what I think is also neat is we've had people take a look at the object over the years, especially people who specialize in artifacts from that area, from that time period. And they seem to think, well, at least looking at it, sure looks like it is that old. So you talk about like the oldest, one of the oldest things in our collection. That's it. So
yeah. The only other old things from our collection that are older than that are from space and possibly older than our solar system. So that's one of the oldest Earth-based things in our collection.
Yep, exactly.
Very neat.
All right. Any other questions?
I think that is all we've got for tonight.
Oh my goodness, the emoji usage and uses of characters on a keyboard are just you guys are rocking it in the chat tonight. Oh my goodness. So anyway, all right. Shall we wrap up?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So folks, I hope you enjoyed this. This was certainly a fun opportunity to think about how constellations came up alongside the history. And we hope you enjoyed finding out how you can use just one simple group of stars in the sky to help you find other stuff as well. Use Stellarium, go out there, give it a try. So we hope you had fun with us and that you'll head outside during some clear nights we get this season to find some of those spring objects objects. Be sure to send us your photos and observations via our social media feeds and use the hashtag #lookup. Thanks so much for joining us and supporting our programming. We love getting to share this time and space with you. I love it. And tell us, how did we do? We'd love to get some feedback from you. Sarah is going to link a feedback survey in the chat in just a sec. It will only take a very short time to fill it out. And if you've filled it out before, we would love for you to fill it out again, because we can keep track of our improvements. It will help us make our shows even better. And you can send us suggestions for future show topics as well. You'll also get to it via a link in tonight's program description. So if the chat closes before you click the link, you can access it there.
Yes. Oh, I'm seeing a bunch of people saying thank you in the chat. Thank you guys all for coming.
Thank you, chat
our next
friends.
show will be on April 5th at 7 p.m. and we'll be talking about the intersections of art and astronomy, which I am super excited about, so you don't want to miss it. Join us then, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight, everyone, and please keep looking up. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.